I've been thinking a lot about my Pokemon video regarding generalists versus specialists. Not just because it blew up beyond my wildest expectations, thanks to you all, but also because something kept nagging at me. In Pokemon, you usually get to build your dream team. You choose who's on it, how it works, and what roles everyone plays. But in real life, you almost never get that luxury. Most of the teams you'll be on at work, school, or wherever are made up of a random mix of people, skills, and personalities. And your job is to figure out how to make it work. Which got me thinking, that sounds exactly like a Pokémon Nuzlocke run. And here's the even wilder part. As you grind through a Nuzlocke run, you actually experience something called Tuckman's Ladder of Team Development, a real-world framework that shows how teams evolve over time, consisting of forming, storming, norming, and performing. I'll break down those stages in a bit, but first, sit back, relax, and grab some tea and crumpets from your favorite gal or cafe, because this is what I learned playing Pokémon Sword. Before we start, huge shout out to Domtron, who designed the Pokémon Nuzlocke tracker I used for this run. It was super easy to use, and I highly recommend it, especially if you're a newbie like me. For those of you unfamiliar with a Nuzlocke run, here's a quick explanation. It's a self-imposed challenge playthrough of a Pokemon game that's designed to make it more difficult, strategic, and sometimes more emotional by following two key rules. Rule number 1, you can only catch the first Pokemon you encounter in each area or route. And rule number 2, when a Pokemon is knocked out, it's considered dead and must be released or put in a graveyard box. There are plenty of optional rules too, but one of the most popular is nicknaming your Pokemon. I was going to skip that rule until I remembered how devastated I was when my cattle farming grandfather was forced to turn my favorite cow, who I had named Batman, into a ground type, if you know what I mean. So I decided to add nicknaming Pokemon as my third rule. On the bright side, Batman was super effective at satisfying my hunger. We're going to break this run into 3 parts, each tied to key stages of Tuckman's Ladder of Team Development. And by the end, you'll understand how a hodgepodge team of Pokemon is just a few gym badges away from becoming champions. Let's start with forming. Forming is the simplest stage of Tuckman's Ladder because it's just about pulling the team together and trying to figure each other out. You know, the awkward getting to know you phase. In Nuzlocke terms, it's like randomly getting assigned a team for a high school group project. You don't know who's on your team, what they can do, or if they're gonna totally tank your grade. You're just hoping someone shows up with at least one working brain cell. In my case, my Pokemon team was entirely at the mercy of RNGesus, or more specifically, Arceus, who decided which Pokemon I'd be working with. And let me tell you, Arceus can be a fickle mistress. Thankfully, my starter randomizer gave me Scorbunny, who I nicknamed Hopscorch after my pet rabbit, Hopscotch. Solid start. But as I worked my way to the Gym Challenge opening ceremony, my luck took a bit of a nosedive. Because my early team was filled with Pokemon I had extremely limited experience using. Hopscorch, Robin, Cheeks, Eugene, Leviathan, and Rusio. But wouldn't you know it, Arceus does have a sense of humor. Because as I was taking Route 3 to get to Milo's gym, you'll never guess who my first encountered Pokemon was. Trubbish. In my last Pokemon video, I made some less than flattering remarks about Garbodor, and was even challenged to a duel by one of you as a result. So I chalked this up as an act of penance, named him Karma, added him to the team, and prayed he would be helpful. But just like forming in your real life, there are going to be some team members who disappoint you, and others who actually surprise you. Trubbish's fate remained uncertain. Which brings us to the next phase, storming. Storming is where the real struggle begins. It's the stage of team development where personalities clash, roles aren't clear, and nothing quite works right yet. It's not a bad stage, but it's uncomfortable. And for me, it was painfully relatable. This was the part of my Nuzlocke run where I experienced the most frustration, because I didn't fully understand how to use my team. Sure, I know my type matchups, but I was working with some Pokemon I'd never used before, and I didn't trust any of them, except Hopscotch. But my over-reliance on him would quickly come back to bite me, both metaphorically and literally. Against Milo, Hopscotch dominated with his fire moves. It was an easy win. But then came Nessa, and I hit a wall. Even with EXP share, I hadn't properly leveled or understood the rest of my Pokemon team. Not even the Yamper I picked up on Route 4 was leveled up enough to make significant use of his type advantage in the battle with Nessa. So when her Dreadnought hit the field, my only real option was to sacrifice both Rusio and Leviathan and throw Hopscotch into a dangerous matchup just to pull out a narrow victory. That fight was brutal, and it taught me an important lesson. Relying on one person, or in this case, Pokemon, is a recipe for disaster, and it doesn't make a strong team. So I made changes. I added Irony and Notistick to fill the gaps left by the previous battle, and I finally started treating this like a real team, not just Hopscotch and his 5 background extras. It wasn't perfect, and the storming phase dragged on longer than I would have liked, but Nessa's beatdown was the wake-up call I needed. And that's what finally pushed me into the next stage, norming. After all the chaos of storming, norming is where things finally started to click. We weren't perfect, far from it, but this was the first time my team actually felt like a team. I stopped winging it and started getting intentional. I built smarter movesets. I set up type advantages to create synergy between my team members, and I even retired certain Pokemon when I caught stronger or more useful ones, because one wrong decision could send a powerhouse straight to the graveyard box, which, yeah, is foreshadowing. At this point, most of my final team was in place. Hopscotch, Robin, Karma, Trogdor, Monty, and a 6 slot that rotated depending on which poor soul had fainted before it, which seems normal in a Nuzlocke run. But some losses cut deeper than others. And after my battle with B, I lost Robin, to a wild Galvantula of all things. I'd lost Pokemon before, but this one hurt. Robin was one of my heavy hitters, and seeing her go felt like losing your favorite coworker. And when they leave, everything shifts, and the rest of the team has to pick up the slack while you scramble to fill the gap. That's what losing Robin was like for my team. So I caught the Galvantula, named him Joker because he KO'd Robin, and made him earn his spot on the team, which caused me to lapse into a mini storming stage where I had to find the right way to integrate him into the team and rebalance my strategy. But we got through it, and from that point on, we entered the final phase, performing. In the performing stage, we were cooking. Karma led the onslaught against Opal, Monty carried us through Gordy, and Joker's bug-type moves were clutch against Pierce. Not to mention Hopscotch and Trogdor tag-teaming together to pull off a win against Rayhan. This was it. We were no longer a bunch of strangers. We were a unit, and it felt amazing to go from a random group of Pokemon I've never used to a fully functioning championship team. At least until we ran into Nessa again in the Winden Championship matches, because a Nuzlocke run is never done teaching you hard lessons. Even at our peak, Nessa's Dreadnought tore through my team again, taking out Joker, Monty, and my 6 slot at the time, Wampa. It was a bloodbath. In a normal run, you just limp to a Pokemon Center and bounce back. But in a Nuzlocke run, losing half of your team this close to the end is devastating. I did, however, manage to finish the pre-Lee tournament, but not without one more loss, because Trogdor fell during the Rayhan battle. And by the time I was eyeing the championship match with Lee, my team looked nothing like it had before. But here's the thing about Tuckman's ladder of team development. It's not a one-and-done process. Teams don't just evolve once and stay perfect forever. Every time someone joins or leaves your team, it shifts and you go through a mini version of the ladder all over again. Because new team members bring new team dynamics. So after rebuilding my team with a few last-minute catches from previously inaccessible wild areas and Rose Tower, it was time for my team's final test. And I'm proud to say that everything I'd learned, every painful loss, every adjustment, every phase of Tuckman's ladder had paid off. This ragtag group of Pokemon who journeyed across the Galar region had done the unthinkable and become a high-performing team of champions. So whether you're leading a team at work, stuck in a group project, or battling your way through a Nuzlocke run, Tuckman's ladder will apply. You'll form, storm, norm, and if you're lucky, perform. Just don't forget that every loss, substitution, or new teammate is a chance to climb the ladder again, even stronger than before. And that's it. Thanks for coming along on this wild ride through Galar with me. If this hits home for you, or you have stories of your own ragtag crew of oddly named Pokemon becoming a true team, drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. If you liked what you saw today, I'd love for you to subscribe and come back for the next one. Until then, see you around.